Hey y'all, welcome to the My Place podcast. I'm your host, Mary McSwain. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm joined, as I normally am, by my dad, Jay McSwain.
Mary, it is college football time. And we've been kind of trekking through the summer, and you finally get to wear something that it's a little cool outside. But for those of us that live in the South, this becomes like, with college football starting, it's like huge where everybody's lives sort of revolves around college football. But I'm glad you can finally wear your sweatshirts and maybe even wear them outside because it's a little nippy nowadays, even this week here in Atlanta. Yeah.
I've worn them outside the last 2 days because it is almost officially sweatshirt season, which is my favorite time of the year, which coincides with football season. So I can appreciate the season like everybody else. But like you said, it does dictate people's schedules. I'm going to Birmingham this weekend, and a lot of times on Fridays we'll go play volleyball, but Auburn is playing football on a Friday, which I don't understand. And it's getting in the way of my plans because everyone's going to want to watch Auburn football.
And not play volleyball.
Exactly.
Wow. Just break the TV or something.
I don't think it would work like that, but that is the time of year that we're getting into. And this is also the time of year where you're sitting down with a lot of people coaching.
A lot of people.
Because you just had a place workshop, and you normally try and get everyone through coaching in about 2 weeks. And you've been sitting down with what, like 40 people?
About 40 people, yes.
And I know you've sat down with probably thousands of people over the year, put in thousands of hours, which I would say makes you an expert. Normally,
I hope so.
Normally, the duration of hours that you put into something is what classifies you or gives you the credibility of an expert. With all of the thousands of people that you have sat down with before, what have you discovered are some of the top reasons that people become unsatisfied or frustrated in their job or in their ministry?
Well, they're in the wrong environment. It could be the right area, but the environment, what they're being asked to do, is not right. And so I think they sometimes flounder because the environment that they're working, serving in is not right.
When you coach people, you walk them through the place assessment, their place profile. And PLACE is an acronym which stands for the 5 different parts of the assessment: personality discovery, learning spiritual gifts, abilities awareness, connecting passion with ministry, and experiences of life. What part of environment, when does environment come up in that conversation if you're going through their profile?
Well, that's the abilities part. And we always say abilities, you have to change your thinking to where you look at it as what is the environment, the optimal environment that you will flourish in your personality and your gifts, and you will be fulfilled in through your passion and life experiences. And as you very well know, even in the years and the people you're teaching now, they sometimes look a little confused. Like, it doesn't sound like that's abilities what you're looking at. And I said, well, I needed to make it work with my acronym. We say the word environment, and you couldn't put PLECE. It wouldn't work. So we use abilities as the environment, again, that you'll flourish in or you'll flounder in.
How did you come to include the abilities awareness as part of the PLACE assessment?
So when we were putting this together back in the 90s, and I say we, I had a team. Dr. Cynthia Quick was a psychologist that taught at a Christian university. Brad Sargent was a researcher that was a professional researcher. We had, as we mentioned before, a man that helped translate the NIV, New American Standard. I had some pastors that I could call upon. So we had a really good team. Well, Dr. Quick, she knew that I didn't like the way you look at abilities. Can you sing, dance, or write? And she knew that. Well, I would have times where I'd go to San Francisco where our researcher Brad was, and we'd sometimes work for a week there. And we had ways that we would work together every day. And I show up. He was working at Golden Gate Seminary also at the time. And he said, Jay, we're going to go over to UC Berkeley today, and we're going to go in their library, and we're going to look at a book there. And I want you to see a concept. And so we went over there, and he brings out this book by John Holland, who really, Mary, is the original person that helped people begin to pick careers. Matter of fact, I was talking to a guidance counselor at a school. I was actually coaching her yesterday. And she goes, oh, I'm so familiar with Holland's career theory, how you pick preferences of those 6 areas. And I went over to the UC Berkeley, this book. Well, first of all, back then, I had to join a psychological society to even be able to purchase the book. And this is in the 90s. The book was $150. That's a lot of money now, but it was like, I can't believe how much this book cost. Then I open up the book, and it's talking about the 6 preferences that we use: social, conventional, realistic, investigative, artistic, and enterprising, our 6 abilities. And it would take me about 30 minutes not to read a page, to read half a page. It was very, very technical, but it was golden. And I got the book. I went back to Oklahoma City where I was working, and Dr. Quick said, Jay, I know that you don't really like using abilities as sing, dance, sew, and write. And she had no idea what I was doing in San Francisco. She had written out, we have not changed it one bit. She had written out the descriptions that we use in our workbook of the 6 ability types. And she goes, you might want to consider using these. And that was a long way to tell you how the way we use abilities in the place tool, how it came about. But it has been golden in the light bulbs that it helps go on for people that begin to understand the way we describe those 6 abilities.
You mentioned John Holland. He was the original, I guess you would say, creator of this typology,
Yeah.
this theory of career choice. It says, I was doing some research because I didn't have to buy a book and join an association because we have Google now. So I just Googled a bunch of research
We didn't
on
have all
him.
that like that back then.
But I was able to Google John Holland to get some background information on him because he's credited with creating over 70 years ago the theory that abilities can be broken down in 6 areas of preference. Those areas that we list in our abilities: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. Many refer to John Holland's theory, as you said, as a theory of career choice. And he talks about the environment that people will naturally gravitate towards, an environment that you can consciously seek after based off of knowing who you are, that reflect both interest and competencies. One person said, according to Holland, people fall into either one of 6 categories where they can fit best with their environment to best use their abilities, values, attitudes, and skill. So the theory is utilized as a self-assessment. It's used in career exploration. It's used in CDCs, career development centers. It's used in career counseling to help people evaluate who they are and pick a career in light of who they are and find an environment that is congruent with their personality. So like you said, they will flourish and they will thrive in the environment that they pick.
Yeah.
How does John Holland's theory of career choice relate, though, to finding your place in life and ministry? Because that's what we're all about here.
Yeah. Well, it tells you where you will flourish in ministry, but it also tells you where you'll flounder. I mean, it's just that simple. It tells you where you flourish, where you flounder. Do you want me to go through the 6 real quickly? And
Yes, I know we've listed them, but that doesn't say a lot about what they are. So if you could give us a
Yeah.
description of these 6 typologies.
I'll go through real simply. People that are realistic, they like to use their hands to do things. They don't always want to use their words. They want to use their hands. They like doing hands-on thing. People that are investigative, well, just like the word says, they like to investigate and analyze. It's interesting about them. They don't like to be put in boxes because they like to go figure things out. So that's the investigative. If you look at the artistic, they don't like boundaries. They like to work with small groups. They like to think outside boxes. They like to oftentimes create things where there aren't things. And sometimes, and one of the questions you gave me is, what have I learned? I knew this somewhat going in, but sometimes people are artistic, not can they sing, dance, sew, or write, but it will be the way that their mind thinks outside of boxes and boundaries. That's artistic. Social, just like it says. They like to be near the center of groups. They like to listen and facilitate the needs of others. Enterprising. They like to lead and persuade. They can be an authority, but they can also accept authority. And then I think the last one is conventional. Like you, they like boundaries and they like structure. And once you give them the boundary and the structure, they're really good at taking that and being able to implement, but they have to have the boundary and the structure.
When John Holland created this, and how a lot of people use his tool now, even still, is to help people evaluate career because they are looking to be satisfied and fulfilled in their career. And a lot of times you are most satisfied in what you're doing when it fits who you are. So you want who you are to fit where you are. And when you know who you are, you can better evaluate opportunities and even eliminate some of your choices. That's a lot of what we want to help people do through place, is that they can know who God created them to be, so they can be and do
Mhm.
all that God created them for. And to know what you're created for, that also helps you evaluate opportunities. And one of the things that we help people evaluate when we're coaching people, when we're walking them through place, is not just understanding your spiritual gifts. It's not just understanding your personality and what you have to offer, but also the environments that you're being offered to be who you are in those places. Because environment, as he's saying in this theory, and as I know that you've seen in all the people you have coached, environment plays a big role in someone's satisfaction. When you've coached people or even in your own life, have you seen that to be true, that your environment influenced the satisfaction you had in what you were doing?
Yes. You know what was so interesting? Years ago in my life, in the late 80s, I got out for several years, as you know, out of vocational ministry. And I'd been to seminary, and that's what I thought I was going to do the rest of my life. And some bumps in the road came, and I got out. I went to Georgia State. I took this battery of tests, like took forever to take it, and they had me come back like a couple of weeks later. And then they explained it to me and told me what career I ought to pick. And they said I ought to be an accountant. Well, as you know, I like numbers. I'm good with numbers. But you also know that in the abilities assessment, that one of my top abilities, I'm social. And so while they got part of it right, they would have been, I would have been miserable if I had become an accountant only dealing with numbers and not listening and facilitating, being near the center of groups. And so sometimes you'll get it right with personality type instruments, but sometimes you'll be dead wrong.
The term that we use a lot of times when describing how the tool works together is psychometrics. That tools stand alone, but they also help explain other tools when they work together. And that's one of the values of this tool, is that one part, one assessment helps explain or shed light on another part of assessment that might not make sense. And you said it just now, you say it all the time. If you were to only look at your personality, you'd get some things right about you, but you'd get a lot of things
You'd have
wrong.
tunnel vision.
Yes, you would
You
have tunnel
you get
vision.
some right, but you can't see it all.
Correct. Like if you were to only look at your personality, it would say that you're very driven and you're very task oriented.
And I'd like ministry if it wasn't for people. That's
Right.
what my personality says about me.
But if you look at your abilities, which is the environment that your personality will flourish in, your environment, your abilities say that you enjoy being around people. You enjoy discussing
That's right.
things with people. You enjoy being near the center of groups. You're also artistic, so you enjoy working outside of a box. being an accountant might match, quote unquote, your personality, but it's not an environment where your personality will flourish.
Yeah. And another thing that my personality says, and I see this in a lot of people, not just me, but I've really kind of dissected me through the years. My personality says I'm a jerk. I mean, I'm a D. I mean, strong, opinionated, intense, sometimes too blunt that I shouldn't be. But I'm artistic. Most artistic people are sensitive. And so while my personality, and I may project myself as insensitive, inside I'm very sensitive. And if I offend someone, it's going to really, really bother me. If someone is a D like me, but not artistic, and they tell somebody the truth and it hurts that person, but it is the truth, a D would just say, well, that's their problem, not mine. I told them the truth. Feel good about myself. It bothers me. So, what we say in psychometrics, when you said really good, one instrument balances another. Sometimes it conflicts with another. Like a lot of times I'm a D and I'll be talking to somebody. They nor me, we don't have anything to do. We just talking, we on the phone, and I'm going in all these directions. And that's the artistic social part of me. And all of a sudden, Mary, a task will hit me that I gotta, and I'm the rudest person in the world. It's like I feel like I just cut them off because I got to go do my task. So sometimes my personality with that social ability conflicts. At times, it tempers that strong personality. I think that's one of the reasons I tell a lot of stories when I teach place is the artistic tempers the strong D type personality.
One of the values of understanding your abilities, I think, is that it helps you to evaluate opportunities and potential environments, but also helps you evaluate and reflect on how you act in certain environments. In that environment where you're on the phone, you're social, you're getting to talk to people, but then you're conflicted with a task, you were able to reflect on how you behaved in that environment based off of your abilities. So you can reflect on how you act in certain environments and why you act the way that you do and articulate that for yourself to either grow in or grow from. But you can also evaluate opportunities. You can evaluate, is this an opportunity where I will be in an environment where I will flourish? Do I need to create an environment for myself where I will flourish? Do I need to articulate to my leader or my boss or my coworkers that I'm very conventional? I need structure. I need rules. I need expectations. I need to know what you expect of me rather than you just telling me, do it however you want, whenever you want. It's all good.
For the conventional, that's kind of like the kiss of death, isn't it? Like you just put me out on a ledge.
Yes, so at times you need to know how to articulate the environment that you need for yourself
Mhm.
because you may be very competent to do something, but if you're not in the right environment, then you won't be able to flourish and do the things that you're competent in, like your spiritual gifts or like where your personality will flourish. Even the skills that you're competent in, while we're talking about, we want you to think about your environment. You also have skills and abilities, but if you're not in the right environment, those skills will not be flourishing because you're in an environment that doesn't suit how you're wired.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's so interesting. You can be doing somewhat the same role, but if you have different people managing you, one can be fulfilled where you flourish and one be where you flounder. And I look at in my beginning working with baseball, I felt like I was being micromanaged a lot and I was always breaking rules and I was floundering. But then when I got a new person who's the CEO of the Braves that was overseeing me, I felt like I flourished because he gave me so much freedom. I look at where I serve. I I serve under someone at my church, our pastor, Dr. Jeff Jackson, and he gives me so much latitude with my artistic part. I am under his authority, but I get a lot of latitude and I feel like I flourish. if I were being confined, it would not be the right place for me. I'll give you one more story. So years ago, as you know, we've been going to Moody Bible for about 18 years now, and we coach students in the spring every year. We help teach their classes we coach. And I always give them my cell phone, always. And I think it had been, and it was kind of interesting. Both of these guys called me about the same time. This is probably 10 or 12 years ago. And both of them had been out of school about 2 years. And they called, one was in Seattle. And he said, Jay, I'm working as a student pastor and I can't stand here. He was artistic, by the way. He said, I feel like every time, even if I want to buy 24-pound paper versus 20-pound paper, I got to go get some ministry reconciliation order. He said, I feel like I'm suffocating here in the way that they are leading, managing me. And it wasn't very long afterwards, another student from Moody called me. And he'd been out a couple of years. And he said, Jay, he was in Pennsylvania. He said, I feel like I'm out on a ledge here. He said, every time, he's conventional. Every time I go to my pastor and I ask for some direction, or am I fulfilling what he desires in leading the student ministry, he always says to me, you do it however you want to. That's what we hired you to do. And he said, I feel like I'm about to be put off of a ledge and fall. And somebody that I was telling this story to said, well, the answer is really simple. Take the guy in Pennsylvania and put him in Seattle, and take the guy in Seattle and put him into Pennsylvania. But you see, their environments where they flourish and flounder were different. People that go through this tool, when they grasp this abilities part, you know this, it's like light bulbs go on. And it is so cool when they start connecting their experiences with what that tool says about them from an ability standpoint.
Well, that light bulb moment, I can attest for myself, is valuable, and being able to evaluate opportunities, evaluate experiences, and also articulate what you need in an environment. That's all from personal experience. What would you say is the value as a leader, as a boss, as a quote unquote manager of knowing the abilities of the people that you're leading?
Well, I know how to lead you. And sometimes if I'm not consciously aware of it, I don't give you what you need. But because I know your place profile, I know that you're conventional, which you want boundaries. I know that you're investigative. And I know in managing you, because you've been working as an employee, you've been doing stuff with place for a long time. But as an employee that works every day, I've had 2 or 3 times in really a little over a year and a half to where, honestly, I have not given you the environment that you flourish in. And either I've seen you frustrated, but when I see you frustrated, I know immediately how to go back and process you, because I know you. Not because you're my daughter, really, honestly, because I know your place profile. And when I give you those boundaries, those boxes, and then I let that investigative ability of yours come out, you just flourish. But you flourish when I give you structure, but I give you freedom within the box because you're investigative. And again, we talk about this a lot. Having a language, like we're using a language right now, artistic, social, investigative, conventional, you and I know what that means, which gives us a lot of help in knowing how to manage. Barbara, who has been working with me 25 years, she's conventional. And she has the gift of helps. If I don't stay connected to her, I can watch her energy dissipating. If I don't, because she has helps, she wants to undergird me. but she wants to do it within the box of what I give her. And if I don't, she gets very frustrated. And 25 years, I sense that. So,
Both of those instances, both of us really, you're able to interact with us. You're able to lead us more effectively because you know how we're wired. Some of the times that also plays into our gifts, like with Barbara, she's conventional. So she wants structure, she wants expectations, but also she wants to be connected to you within that structure because she has a spiritual gift of helps.
yeah.
People with the spiritual gift of helps, they want to be a co-captain. They want to undergird someone. They want to hitch their wagon to someone. And when they feel disconnected from their leader, they start to become frustrated. Even if she knew all the rules, she's been working with you for what, 25 years?
Yeah. She knows the rules. She knows most of the time she knows them better than me.
But she wants to be connected to you still within those rules because of that spiritual gift. With how I'm wired, I'm conventional, so I need structure and boundaries. Sometimes that looks like a project. Sometimes it looks like just a deadline. Sometimes it looks like checking in. But a lot of times when you check in on the boundaries you've already given me, I don't like that all the time because I'm also investigative. People who are investigative, they like to analyze and solve problems, but they want to do it independently. And so if you tried to treat me like Barbara just because you looked at the fact they were both conventional,
That's right.
then you might try and get too connected, which neither one of us would probably enjoy that much. But because you look at other parts of my place profile holistically, you know that I need structure, but this is the kind of structure that I need. And once you've drawn that box for me, you can let me do it independently. And that's where my task-oriented personality, my spiritual gifts of wisdom, knowledge, and teaching that wants to go deep, find application, and then communicate the depth of the application that I've found. When you give me the structure and the boundaries, you know how to create that for me as a leader. But I think it's also important that I know how to create that for myself because we're also responsible for the environment that we create for ourselves to thrive and to be stewards of the gifts that we've been given, the personality that we've been given, even the job that we've been given to do. We're called to be stewards of that. And I think one of the ways that we are faithful stewards is by knowing the environment that we need to flourish.
Yeah. We're getting toward the end of our podcast, which they all go really fast. But you gave a question to me that I want to go back, and it says, you were asking about, I wrote it, but how did I begin to really come to understand it, right? And I laughed when I saw that because I did all the research. I had a team around me. We put it all together pretty much like it is now, 28 years ago. And I had it here, but then I began to sit down with people and I began to learn it by letting people. A lot of times I'd take them, like in the book now, it's page 103, and I'd say, read the description of this ability. And they scored highest in, and they'd read it, and I'd say, what parts really resonate with you? And they'd tell me, can you give me an example? And that's when I began listening to people's stories. We had a guy one time, it was the very first year, and he did not have great social skills, but he was realistic. And he wanted to help his church. He liked using his hands. He was realistic and enterprising. They don't seem like they go together. I mean, lead and persuade. Well, their church needed to be able to have a room set up with a lot of chairs every Sunday morning, and they needed somebody to come in early to set it up, put all the announcements, 250 chairs on every chair. He got there as soon as he could get there every Sunday morning, and he couldn't get it done. And he said, people were coming in, and I realized, enterprising. He said these words, I need to lead and persuade others to help. Now, the whole time, Mary, he's telling me this. He's looking down at the ground because he didn't have very good social skills. And he tells me that he went and found two friends. He persuaded them to become part of his team. And he said, now we get there when we can. early enough, and we easily get it all set up. And the only time I ever saw his eyeballs, he looked at me and he said, I like being the leader. He was enterprising, but he wasn't enterprising the way I thought somebody would be enterprising. I thought that'd be someone standing on a stage or motivating people through all their words. But he wanted to use his hands and lead people in that team. So I wrote it, but then people started teaching me my own tool. And it's really cool because people read those statements in there and it's like, wow, that's why I felt that way. That's why I really loved doing whatever it was, or that's why I felt horrible and I floundered in that job. So I've loved watching people, and never gets old for me. Teach me about my own tool that I put together.
Oftentimes, I've found that the assessment will articulate who someone is, but it will not dictate who they are.
So you do this almost every time. Say that one more time.
Oftentimes, the assessment will articulate who someone is, but it will not dictate who they are.
That's why you get paid the big bucks sitting here, don't you? Wow.
I think that comes with listening, that comes with learning. And what you described in that story is what we have found. And one of the reasons people are oftentimes hesitant to take the assessment is because they don't want the assessment to dictate who they are. They don't want the assessment to tell them who they are, but rather what we have found is that the assessment gives a language to who somebody already is.
Yes.
It affirms who you are, it validates who you already are, and it just gives you a language to articulate that and be able to reflect on past experience and also evaluate future opportunities.
Maybe share with bosses what you need, or be able to manage people if you know the language of who they are. So again, I love it. It doesn't dictate who you are, it articulates. That's gold. That is good. Ooh.
In our environment, I think as we wrap up this conversation, the big takeaway for me is how big a role your environment can play on your fulfillment, your effectiveness, and your satisfaction. And if you don't know or can articulate the environment that you will flourish in, you can't reflect on your past experience as well, and you can't evaluate future opportunities as well either when you don't know who you are. So as we do wrap up this conversation today on environment, we want to encourage y'all to discover the environment that you will flourish in, that you will feel effective in, and that you will thrive in, so that you can be a good steward of the gifts that the Lord has given you, on the personality that He has given you. Because our heart for you is that you would thrive in anything that the Lord has called you to, that you would steward the gifts that He has given you. And one of the ways you could steward those gifts best is by being in an environment where you will feel effective and you will feel fulfilled. So if you don't know that environment, I would encourage you to go take the place assessment. We'll put a link in the description of this podcast so you can be a good steward of the ways that the Lord has gifted and designed you by discovering the environment that you will flourish in.